Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Derek and Logan.
Hello, and welcome to episode 140 in a row of Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I'm your host, and with me, as always, is Derek Charmer Oswald, aka.
You almost got it wrong.
I almost got it wrong. I corrected myself.
This is almost as bad. I got an email today from somebody who was replying to me like from an email chain. So not only do they have my contact info there, right? Like there's somebody at my job. I've participated in said email chain, and somebody said like, yeah, Derek knows more info. And I really wish I didn't work at a government job with protected information, or else I would have taken a picture and sent it to you, because they spelled my name D-A-R-R-I-K. And all I could think about was you.
So close. Fucking close.
And it's just extra fresh because, you know.
Because of Eric?
Yeah, I was just about to say, because we were at Gen Con, and if you're new to the show for whatever reason, and you're deciding episode 40 is where you want to listen, I have a long history of people not knowing who I am, for whatever reason. And we've talked about it quite a bit on previous episodes, and for a long time, Logan said, like, I just don't believe you, and then he kept seeing examples of it, and then over the weekend at Gen Con, I was there with my son Stark, and I kept seeing a bunch of people because weirdly enough, I have accomplices. I'm not going to say friends. I'll say accomplices, which is actually
what Stark wants you to say.
Yeah, another joke from my son, which was a banger. But I kept seeing people, and so I'd be like, "Oh, hey, you know, how are you? How are things going? You know, how's your con?" And Stark doesn't know a lot of them, so you'd say, "Hey, person my dad knows," like that was his opener. So I swing by one of the two LSS Gen Con booths. This was in the event area, and Eric, the judge, wonderful person, great guy. He was doing a demo, so I just walk up and I was like, "Hey, Eric, how's your con going? How are things?" You know, I just kind of wanted to hear from him how the demo experience was going, etc. And so as I say, you know, "Hey, what's up?" my son, like he has with everybody, says, "Hey, person my dad knows." And Eric just stares into my eyes, like into my soul, like he's trying to do the soul read, and he's answering Stark while he looks at me, right, eyes locked, and he goes, "Hey, son of the person who I probably know their dad." And he's just staring at me, and he goes, "I'm sorry, I can't remember your name." And I was like,
Jesus Christ.
I'm Derek Charmer. And he goes, "Oh, Charmer!" And all I could think was like, Eric, we were on a cruise together. We played Flesh and Blood in international waters. Like, I don't know how else to get you to know me, but
yeah, that one got me. Like that one set me a little bit.
You kind of fumbling. You know, the opener is just par for the course at this point. We are reverting. We're going back in time.
We're going back in time, but yeah, we're regressing. But yeah, there was several of the greater FaP community that were at Gen Con working with the LSS team. Eric was there. Judge Jacob was there. Clark was there. So, you know, there's a lot of the kind of an old home week, and even in the play area, you know, I got to spend some time around Rachel, aka Max Ferocity, and Phil.
Yeah, I only got to talk to her briefly, and then I saw Phil actually in the line to demo Altered, but him and I, like, we were standing there and I could see him, and he finally looked over and he kind of does one of these, and I went, you know, you know, if you're listening on the audio, I did eyes, you know, finger pointing at eyes. Yeah, I see you. But yeah, them, even some old school members, so like Cosmic was there. Yeah, it was so good to see Clark though, because he was, I really feel like in his element, and I enjoy that because Clark is such a wholesome dude. Like he's so nice, and he was like, even though he was working and you could tell he was kind of exhausted, he was just like all smiles and so happy to help people. So I just want to give a special shout out to Clark because he was killing it.
Oh, I thought Clark was doing great. I thought that he was. I spoke to him for a few minutes, but he was this normal, affable, dialed in self, even though he was jet lagged from getting in from Amsterdam. There were a few of those that were there that were at that boat.
Yeah, I said, you could tell he was exhausted, but
yeah, we also, because Dagan White was there working with Alpha Clash, and he had the worst time getting through to Amsterdam, and getting back was a little bit easier, but basically he had slept in a few days, and he was but the best thing was, like, or my favorite part of this was, you had a bunch of people within like our little groups and stuff like that. This was their first Gen Con. Some of them just because LSS was there, and we'll have a discussion about that as well. But I thought it was really cool because I love seeing people see Gen Con for the first time, and I love it when they've been to cons before and then they see this thing. It's just so incredible to watch their faces go, what in the actual fuck is this?
Yeah.
And the best one, so Peter Budensky. No. Budensik. Not the Secretary of Transportation. My brain is not functioning, by the way.
Are you talking about the Peter you're talking about is the Secretary of Blastin?
Yeah, he is the Secretary of Blastin, as opposed to the Attorney General Majinbei. But he was playing One Piece and other card games in Lucas Oil Stadium, so on the football field in Lucas Oil Stadium. And he actually fell asleep during a match. He got a warning for it, which I think is one of the funniest fucking things I've ever heard. But he eventually, like, Elaine and Mo Bogsley catch up with him and are talking to him, like, okay, so have you gone and seen the rest of the con? What do you mean the rest of the con?
He hadn't been to the actual convention center yet. He'd only been.
It's like, oh, you sweet summer child.
So it's funny. I was going to tell like the reverse story, which is obviously I was there with Stark. It was Stark's second year, but this was one of those moments where we were out at the food trucks and he was like, hey, there's people going into the stadium. And I was like, oh yeah, bud, you don't understand. That's all gaming too.
Right.
Like, it's the convention that you can't fit into a convention center.
It's a convention you can't fit into a convention center, plus a football stadium, plus every ballroom of every hotel connected to it, to the point that one of the hotels is building a new convention, a new hall for themselves, for their hotel, plus more ballroom space so they can accommodate more. Because that's the nut for all those hotels in downtown Indianapolis every year is Gen Con.
Yeah.
And so if Indy lost Gen Con, those hotels would lose so much money, and just not something that they will just keep
not
building
even just the
out.
hotels. I'm sure that's also huge for the food trucks.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like, I'm sure that they do stuff for the football season, right? And
yeah,
I'm sure I know that Indianapolis actually does like a food truck, almost like a convention once a year, right? But the food trucks are hammered during Gen Con as well. So you know that they are definitely going to be impacted if it ever moved. But yeah, it is massive, and it's so interesting because I think when people think of like massive nerd convention, you naturally think of San Diego Comic-Con because it gets a ton of press, and that's largely because there's a lot of industry,
more celebrity
announcements. Yeah, more celebrity, more industry announcements. And it is massive, and there is a lot of people that go, but it's like a different feeling because it is more like companies for gamers. And while there are gaming companies at Gen Con, and they do announcements, and they have that, it's less of that vibe. It really just feels like gamers gonna game, and also companies show up to accommodate them, as opposed to it being media, advertising agenda driven.
Yeah, the way I usually put it to people when I'm talking about Gen Con is that they often, like, why do you like this so much? And the response is, most conventions you go to feel like a bazaar for people to go and shop for things at. And then there are some events here and there. Gen Con feels like it's all events all the time, going nonstop. And there's also this exhibit hall over here that's open for like 8 hours.
You have to schedule time to go, quote unquote, shopping,
right?
If you want to do it. Like I told Stark, because the last year we didn't have a lot of time. So I said, all right, I'm going to leave, you know, some of our Saturday open so that we have like dedicated exhibit hall time. And then we still didn't get through it all in the short time that I had allotted for it. So we did like a run through on Sunday as well. I did get to see Ridge. The first time I went by the Alpha Clash booth, I don't think he was there, or I just didn't see him. But granted, the place is packed. But I did get to see him at least on Sunday and say hello. But yeah, there's just, you know, the exhibit hall is massive like you would expect, but there's just not enough time, especially when you are actively playing games, which you should be doing because they have amazing opportunities at Gen Con. But I totally understand what you mean, right? You go to a traditional convention and it does feel like there is, I don't know, like this forward facing, it's going to sound demeaning to say it this way, but it kind of feels like a pop-up flea market sometimes, right? Like a bunch of people, set up shop and you kind of meander through and there's tons of cool stuff. And there might be like a, hey, 2 o'clock, we're going to do a thing on this stage. And at 4, there will be like a parade and whatever. It's like, no, that is all the time at Gen Con. Like you walk through the halls and there are like, there's a bard band, and then you'll walk through another place and there's a different band. And then there's like a spot where there are like, not just cosplayers, but like people dressed up as balloon gnomes or whatever. And
the best is when I tell people that there's a second floor. Have you been up there yet? And they're like, yeah, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, go up the escalator. There's more stuff. There's
a second floor. And there are, the skywalks, the walkways to the other hotels, like you said. Like, hey, have you been to the JW yet? For what? I don't know. They got this, and this.
Did you go to the Marriott? Why would I go to the Marriott? Because that's where the consignment hall is. So if you want to go shop on other people's consignment games, that's where they're at. Also, that's where the auction is and big game night. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's like,
hey, have you been to where the Indianapolis Colts play football? Have you? Oh, well, if you hook a right at the Peyton Manning statue, you can find a ton of games all day long.
Yeah. Have you gone to the basement? Yeah. You can go down there and play True Dungeon. And it's just like, and I think I like my Gen Con approach, because my Gen Con approach is usually I have 2 things I'm going to do, and I'm going to devote time to those 2 things. So it's usually True Dungeon, number 1, and then something else. So this year it was Kingdom Death Monster and True Dungeon. So I did 3 True Dungeon runs. I died in the last one, didn't die in the last one, died in the second one, which... no, it was the last one. I did die in the last one. That's right. Okay. And then Kingdom Death Monster, I played 10 hours of KDM over the weekend. Couldn't get enough. I spent some time talking to the heads of the company, talked to the creator of the game for a bit, talked to the head of Game Theory Tables. We're not sponsored by Game Theory Tables, but they gave me a shirt. I talked to so many people. The heads of the people at DeVere, who make Rock Hard 1977, know that it's not a porn game. It is a Rockstar game. So you talk to a ton of people. You talk to a ton of industry people, and they're usually there like selling something. In this case, the creator of KDM was actually just demoing the game for people.
It's amazing. You will find more interaction with like high level people at Gen Con just casually being out there. And I think that was part of the reason I was trying to describe the difference in vibe between like a San Diego Comic-Con versus Gen Con, because you go to San Diego Comic-Con and like, yeah, you can run into people from Marvel or DC or Disney or whatever, but like you'll see him in passing and be like, oh, I saw Kevin Feige. But you go to Gen Con and it's literally like, hey, I was at a booth and I met the creator of Alpha Clash. Or like when Stark and I were demoing Altered, their chief marketing officer, was there doing demos. Yeah, no, he was doing demos.
I know. I talked to him for a while.
Yeah, Eric. So like, it's such a different vibe at Gen Con, because you're right. It's just like, oh, hey, what are you? Oh, you're the person who runs the entire company for Kingdom Death Monster, and you're just out here doing your thing. Okay, cool. Like,
yeah, he's just chilling. And then So I had a good conversation with him over, over a couple of things. There's that little networking piece, but it doesn't feel like networking. It feels like you're just doing the thing with people that also want to do the same things. And then I played one of the Flesh and Blood events. I played a Chaos Blitz sealed. So you get one of the Blitz precons at random. And I got Azalea. Managed to get the 4-0, which got me a cold foil token, which was supposed to be a rune champ, but I already had one, so I swapped it for a gold. Alex Watkins was very accommodating. And I had to beat there's a lot of new players. And so one of the new players was paired with me and got Briar. So I taught her how to play the deck. And then she's like, okay, I'm going to take lethal now. And I'm like, you don't have, she's like, no, you've dealt a lot of damage to yourself doing this as a learn to play. Thank you. Please let me die. I'm like, okay. Then I got paired into a Kano. And now was Kano available for people to get. And there are several of those precons that don't have any arcane barrier. Azalea is one of them. So I had 0 AB.
It's interesting that the Ranger is also the one that ended up with 0 AP. I will say this. Part of my Gen Con experience was that Stark and I did a Learn to Play event. Even though Stark already knows how to play, I've been teaching him to play Blitz at home. We wanted to get some of the first strike decks so that we could continue to play and so forth. And I am very, very happy that they don't have Arcane Barrier, but all of the first strike decks so far, aka Terra and Aurora, they come with a full equipment suite, and 2 of the pieces are Iron Rot, but then they also give you Spell Void pieces for the 2 Iron Rot, so that you can swap them out as needed and still essentially have the same new player effect of, okay, I use this one time to stop damage. It's just one is for Arcane or not. And it's nice that they're doing that for the first strike decks, because that's something that we've talked about in the past about how some of the stuff doesn't match up very well with the existing Blitz decks, even some of like the Armory decks and whatever. And I, again, have to give LSS credit whenever they listen, right? We say things like, hey, it'd be nice if X, Y, or Z, and then suddenly in the next product or two, we see it. So thank you, LSS. I genuinely appreciated that. It was actually very helpful when I was teaching Stark, because he got himself into a position where he would have died otherwise, but then he had the way to stop the AB, right? And it would have felt bad if it was, say, like the Aria precons where you're just like dead to Rosetta Thorn at some point.
I guess I just die. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was also awesome to see, because the LSS booth in both places was usually very busy, and the events were mostly sold out across the way. I did wind up with 2 Blaze promos, because I bought the Azalea and the Bolton decks, and because they have cards in them I don't have, and I'm never going to play Bolton probably, but I might as well have it. Azalea, right. I've considered doing a couple of, trying here and there when as time rises, and there are definitely cards in there I think you need for that. So it's like, okay, that's 80, and then they had History Pack 1 for like $2.50 a pack. So there's my 5. And so I walked up to a couple of people that one of them like listens to the show and has building collections or whatever. And I played her in Indianapolis before. And I was like, hey, I'm going to open these packs, but I'm going to give you the contents regardless of what they are. And I just want to see what I'm giving away. And she's like, thank you. And I'm like, cool. Pop the first one. I'm like, nothing big. Pop the second one. Oh yeah, here's an E-Strike. There you go. And she's like, you're just going to give that away? You're giving that away. I'm like, yeah, it's yours. Don't want it. And she's like,
I said what I said.
Thank you. I'm like, yep, you're welcome. And just walk away. It's just like my final round opponent too. It was like, all these packs and promos and other things. I'm like, I do not care about these. These are all yours. Thank you for the game. And just walk away.
Yep.
And people are always shocked by that. And I just like it's just a good thing to do. Like, if you don't need it, just here. It's not that big of a deal. You're going to get more out of this than I will. At which point, please take it. keep playing the game. I'm happy you're here. Keep going. I'm excited you're a part of this. And I don't think that that's something that I think a lot of the community has that same vibe or that same attitude personally. But yeah, I'm glad. I'm happy to make people happy when it comes to interacting with Flesh and Blood however I can. And I was on the other side, I was very happy to see that the booth was busy, that it was engaging, that people were having fun. Also, my favorite part this was great. So I sit down for a 3-hour KDM game, the beginning of a 48-hour campaign setting that people were jumping in and out in 3-hour blocks. And I sit down, and somebody sits next to me, hadn't met them, and this other couple sit down, and the guy sitting in my left goes, "Hey, I love your show." Like, thank you. He's like, "Yeah, man, like that's cool. So you play Flesh and Blood?" He's like, "Yeah, I play a little bit more like other games, but yeah, I play Flesh and Blood." I'm like, "That's cool." He's like, "Yeah, actually, the reason that I'm here playing this game is because of your show. You started talking about it a lot, and so I went and like tried it locally, and then I got fucking hooked." I'm like, cross-pollination is awesome.
Yeah.
But so Dominique, if you're listening, what's up, dude? And yeah, that was a blast. Really enjoyed it. That was, and again, just playing Kingdom Death Monsters, a fucking blast.
You talk about cross-pollination. I had a weird experience. I had somebody at one of the Flesh and Blood, I had somebody at one of the Star Wars events say that they liked Flesh and Pod. And then I had somebody, when Stark and I were playing in the Altered Faction tournament, he was like, we're playing Altered, but he goes, "Hey, your voice sounds familiar. Do you have a podcast?" And I said,
2.
Yeah. And he goes, "A Star Wars one, right?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, or Ice Cave
The
Radio."
respectable one, yeah.
And then he goes, "Oh yeah, that's fire." And he pulls up his phone and he goes to the Ice Cave like YouTube, and you can see where all of the videos have been watched. And I mean, like, the red bar is mostly full, so he's not one of those people who like listens just enough to hate us and leave. And I was like, "Oh yeah, thanks, man." But it was just weird because the recognition was never at the game that I do the show for. It was kind of cross. And
that's a good thing.
It's also weird that people recognize me at all, since Eric didn't recognize me.
Well, Eric's burned.
Oh no, I love you, Eric.
I love
Eric
that guy.
It was such a funny moment. But yeah, I really also appreciate the LSS decided to not go small, and I'll go into a lot more of that later when we potentially have a surprise guest. But the one thing that like jumped out at me just for like my own personal experience from this particular thing was when Stark and I were doing that Learn to Play event. They actually like put quite a bit of thought into it because they kind of staggered the experience. So you actually they had this massive like TV that they brought into the event hall. And when you start for the new players, they like play a video that they've custom made to teach people the game. And then they play with Ira decks, and then you get your first strike decks with different heroes as opposed to the mirrored experience. It was just really thoughtful the way that they eased people into it, kind of knowing that it doesn't play like any other game, even if you're coming from other card games or whatever. So I think that was a good thing. And yeah, I just also want to echo what you said. The booth in both halls was always full. Like every time I went by. So they had like the booth with like merchandise that you could buy, but then there was also X number of tables where they were doing demos, and they were always full. I never saw, anytime I walked past either spot, an open table.
Yep, it was always full, and it was, again, everybody was engaged. There was Trevor Baker, the head of organized play, was out there doing demos. As I talked to him for a little bit. I
got to say hi to Trevor as well.
Ward from Star City was there doing demos, so I got to say hi to Ward. Terrence, again, I talked about Jacob.
Oh, and now I'm as bad as Eric. I can't remember her name. Also does stuff for Star City. Different hair color, sometimes does pigtails.
Oh, you're talking about Ash.
Yeah, Ash. She was there as well.
Ash is a good dude. Love it. Love Ash. Just the best. And who else did I notice was there? There was a ton. Oh, Klaus was there.
Yeah.
And so again, it was just like, it was kind of an all hands on deck thing and everybody was doing their part. So really, really enjoyed it. Had a lot of fun, and we're going to deep dive it in a couple of weeks. We're going to deep dive it, and we're going to talk about the convention experience in general in 2 weeks. Don't ask why. It's in 2 weeks, but it's in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about it. 2 weeks. Okay. Let's move on. It is Collector's Week, so it's the week that Charmer gives the least fucks about.
This is not true.
What week do you give less fucks about?
Oh, I would see. This is actually really hard. I would normally say Halloween because I'm just in full code orange at that point. But this year, it's also Worlds.
Okay, well, yeah, you're going to give a fuck about that then.
Yeah.
So this is the week you give the least fucks about.
Yeah, because like when it's Halloween season, man, it's full spook time.
Yeah, I love Halloween season. It's my favorite season.
Yeah, it's mine too.
So this week we got, or the first day, so we don't have, obviously, the week is going right now as we're recording, but the first thing they did is they went ahead and gave us the print run update. Some of these numbers kind of shocked me a little bit, and it made me think that this is starting, that FaP 2.0 is far more conscious of print numbers and everything else. So a couple of takeaways that I saw really quick. Every set is currently out of print, which, okay, that's interesting. That Mistveil just came out and is out of print. So they've obviously already printed everything they think they're going to need for Mistveil.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have out of stock lists. So, which means you can't order it from distribution can't order it. What's out there is out there. So the out of stock list is everything. Or sorry, out of print list is everything. The out of stock list are the things you would expect. So obviously, Welcome to Wraith, Arc, Crew, Monarch. Although I'm still flummoxed because Monarch is the by far the most heavily printed set. Everfest and Aria out of stock. Uprising is out of stock. Dynasty is out of stock. English Outsiders and English Dusk Till Dawn are out of stock. So when we drill down into the numbers, like, so giving some frames of reference here, there are 264,700 boxes that exist in total, first edition unlimited, of Welcome to Wraith. There are 195,700 of Arc, again combining the numbers. Crew is the lowest print run of any set in totality at 162,500. Then there's Monarch, which is 306,000. So that's almost, that we're talking about almost doubling up. Then Everfest is 284, which this is the funny one because first edition Everfest there's 208,000. Unlimited only has 76,000.
Yeah.
So that's a weird one, but we know why. Everfest is 229,000 for first edition and the 40 unlimited that escaped. So the 10 cases that got out in the wild. And then it goes to FaP 2.0. And you can see a lot of clear delineations here. The first FaP 2.0 set was Uprising. And Uprising, 212,000. So only things that it's bigger than are Arc and Crew. Okay, that sounds about right. There's History Pack 1 Black Label. Sure. There's Dynasty, this is one of the ones that gets me. Dynasty is only 168,000. That's low, but yeah, it's also a supplemental set, so I kind of get it, right?
Yeah, kind of.
But then we hit Outsiders.
Well, before you move on, though, I need to say two things about Dynasty. It is historically a set that is chronically shit on. Like, let's be honest, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, Dynasty wasn't good, but I have always said that I think that it's a better set than people give it credit for. There's definitely playable stuff in there, but also it's when we got Assassin introduced, and so a lot of that stuff that was only in Dynasty, I could very well see that being considered any pricey. Like, yes, it's supplemental, but like considered to be kind of underprinted in the future.
Yep. And this is where things get interesting, because Outsiders is a draftable set, and there's only 169,000 boxes. That's generally speaking the same print run as Dynasty, but as a draftable set. That's crazy. And so Outsiders is in that same boat of there's a lot of cards in Outsiders that matter. And this is why your things like your Codex is a frailty and shit like that are going to always have that sort of price point on them. And then the last set that we have eyes on is actually Dusk Till Dawn with 175,000. So there's more Dusk Till Dawn in the world than there is Outsiders. But this kind of gives you a good lens into what they're doing. Now, my gut feeling is they did print runs that were... let's put it this way. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these sets hit the incinerator, that they printed more than this originally. And once they saw what sales were, specifically with like Dynasty and Outsiders, saw what sales were, and they said, okay, this is enough stock. We don't need to flood the market with it. So let's just take the L on what the other stuff we printed, and this is what we're going to leave it at. That wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. They are very protective of their game, and then the value of the game to collectors, and I think that is admirable, in my opinion. I am very intrigued what that Mistveil print number is, though. If it's out of stock or out of print already, that means that they have already decided that there is enough Mistveil out there. But Mistveil is also Heavy Hitters as well, are both products that were targeted towards market expansion. And so I'm very interested in what those numbers will come back as next year when we get the same update.
So what's interesting, though, to me is it is entirely possible maybe they did have some stuff hit the incinerator or whatever, but I also think that there's a strong chance that as they have gotten more time and experience under their belt, they also might be finding like a good sweet spot, knowing that they do want to maintain some level of collectability, and they are very open about that. But also, it's no longer year one. It's no longer pandemic time. They've had, a couple of years worth of data now for how sets are going. And I think that they have the potential to be kind of planning their print runs around one of the things that I don't think is talked about enough, which is that Flesh and Blood is essentially an eternal format. And yes, they're new sets, and yes, they're draftable sets, right? But if you know what your organized play structure for the big events is going to be roughly a year out or whatever, and what you're going to do, you can set aside enough product for that. And then you can just plan your print runs according to your, demand projections that should be a bit more honed in now. And I think that you don't need to print as much when you consider that even in like Part the Mistveil, where you've got heroes that are entirely a new talent, Mystic is a thing, and you need all of these Mystic cards or whatever, there's still gonna be, probably 20 to 30 cards in somebody's deck that's coming from other sets, right? So when you're factoring stuff like that in, I think that they don't have to have as high of print runs as games with pure rotation, if that makes sense.
Sure. And that might be true. Yeah. But it's weird because it doesn't tell us a lot about the growth of the game because of what you just explained.
Yeah.
If it's purely this is enough to keep growth going. Okay. History Pack 1, is out of print. It's not out of stock per this list, but it is out of print. But when we do not know the print and run on that yet, that could be very large, in which case you're right. You just don't need to do it because History Pack 1 is out there. You can just, by all means, go right ahead. And even History Pack 1 Black Label is the only language that's out of stock is German. The rest of them are in stock at their, at the distributors in their respective countries. So sure. Okay. That seems like a great solution. But to me, like, I really like that and feel very comfortable in the fact that LSS gives us this information willingly. Like every year, they just give us an update and you can get some clarity into their thought processes. And it makes me feel comfortable because I can look at this and know, okay, as somebody that has a collection of cards that has a value, regardless of what that value is, I can see that there is some protections and curations in place. And that's a nice thing. Considering with that, they did update the reprint policy as well. And this has always been an unwritten policy, or part of the policy. And we started seeing this as early as when we in Outsiders, it might even be earlier than that, in Uprising, when Scar for Scar was reprinted. If a card has been printed as a rainbow foil, that art will not be printed again as a rainbow foil. So, Command and Conquer, Light and Strike, Art of War, Sink Below, etc., now has the same protections that cold foils do. Where if you own foils, whatever set that they came out of is the only set for foils. So when we've seen things that be reprinted in the past, like Ravenous Rabble, Scar for Scar, and another, assorted things, and they didn't come in the foil slot, that's because the reprint policy covers that they will not be printed that way again. And again, it leaves the foils for the collectors to that degree. And I think that's good. I think that is a very, very good thing to do.
Yeah, it was kind of like you said, the unwritten rule. I'm kind of curious about how they are going to tackle that going forward, whether that just means different art versions or if we're going to just continually get like more and more reprints in sets, but it just doesn't have a foil version of that card. And the only reason that I'm even thinking about that, and my brain started to stray as you were talking, as I was thinking about, it's probably a really minor percentage and doesn't matter a ton, but technically the lack of something being able to appear in foil but being in a set does skew numbers when you are playing limited. And as somebody who likes to play a lot of limited, I do think about those things, right? What is less likely to be in my pack if I'm opening it for draft or sealed, and the foil slot is an additional slot. So I expect those numbers will be really small, and I'm sure that they are probably factoring that into their runs because they're really smart people over there and they all love to draft and play limited as well. But that was, as you were talking, it looked like I was staring into space. It's because I was doing the Zach Galifianakis meme where I was seeing shapes and hearing colors, and yeah.
Fine. The other takeaway from this in my mind is that there are not a lot of Arc and Crew foils. So there's a reason that foil Command and Conquer is certainly not cheap, because and also if there are Crew staples, there are cards in Crucible that people use on a regular basis, and I would only expect those foils to, now that it is solidified that those foils are also going to eventually jump here. And again, I'm happy about it. Like, honestly, I'm happy that they just came out and said, fine, yep, this is the case. Also, not a lot of dynasty foils, for those that are wondering. It is pretty light. The last thing I have under Collector's Week. So this is a fun one because Derek has not heard about this to my knowledge. But there is a company out there that for a fee will throw your booster boxes or your sealed packs through a CT scanner. And the imaging from the CT scanner will tell you which packs have foils in them. And then also, in the case of, I think specifically Pokemon right now, and I don't know about others, if you scan a pack that has a foil in it, it basically looks like the Guess the Pokemon between commercial breaks of the Pokemon cartoon. And it shows you the silhouette of the Pokemon. And so you know what's in the pack. Now, as this kind of keeps branching out to other games, there's a lot of talk around collectors about, it's more specific to Pokemon right now, but it's starting to stray into other games. But sealed product is dead. Like collecting sealed product in booster and pack and booster box form is just dead. That doing it is pointless.
Rudy's in shambles.
Actually, he is very much so in panic point. And it's kind of fascinating because as somebody who doesn't interact with any of those games, there are a lot of people I know because Pokemon packs have been weighed for decades at this point to find out if it's a quote unquote heavy pack. Right. And that means it has a foil. Now you can just scan the pack and find out what foil it is. So if somebody's selling,
smell them.
Well, they're not paper, so you can't. But it doesn't make any fucking sense. But whatever. But with the scanning thing, you now just can't trust if somebody has like an old booster pack of something. You just can't trust that booster pack hasn't been searched. Like, you have no way of knowing. It's like the old Magic packs where the cellophane they used was actually see-through if you stretched it hard enough. And so the dark was one of them. There are a few different ones of these where you can actually see the card.
Was it Homelands was one of the other ones? Not that there was anything worth looking for.
It wasn't Homelands.
What else was
Fallen
around
Empires.
Fallen Empires. Yeah, sorry. I was trying to think of the small set. Fallen Empires, yeah.
Italian Renaissance, Fallen Empires, and the Dark, I believe, are the three. And so you could find out what the rare in the pack was. Or most of the content of the pack, actually. And so it's like, hey, are these packs searched? No, of course not. Really?
All right. Now, if you're listening and you're somebody who's saying like, hey, this sounds interesting, maybe I want to do this. Allow me to caution you. Allow Papa Charmer to tell you why this is a bad idea to use this service. All right. Even if let's just say that they like live stream or send you a recording of them doing your box or your pack or whatever, doesn't mean it was yours. Like if there's something really good in there and they scan it and they find it, they could just pick another box and be like, this was your box, have at it. This was your pack, have at it. Like you're giving up agency. Just open your stuff and play the game.
Do you want me to open the alpha pack that's behind me?
Open your stuff and play the game. That's what I say.
Okay, well, fine. I'll open the alpha pack then. Hold on. I gotta get it. Actually, I don't know where it is. Oh, there it is.
When he opens a Heart of Findall, I'm going to make some joke about he had a heart all along.
No, I didn't. So, okay. Welcome to the alpha pack.
The Grinch. Now, how do I know this is an alpha pack? How do I know?
It doesn't say unlimited on it.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, great.
How do I know?
Right, opening the pack.
I don't know.
Little demo crew.
Yeah, pink strip. That's how you know. All right, so we got Scar for Scar. Hello.
Pink Scar.
I need more pink scars.
A Flocky Boy. A Scour. A Breaking Scales.
Oh,
a yellow drone of brutality. A barraging
beatdown. Blue. A foil.
A staunch response.
Is that a yellow? There was a little glare. I think, yeah, the yellow staunch.
Yeah. A pack hunt. A stonewall confidence. A primeval below. A debilitate.
Debilitate, yeah.
And a blue sharpened steel. So one of the... Oh, sorry, there's more stuff. Yeah, there's nothing good in here. It's one of the worst packs ever. But it has a pink scar.
Yeah, it has a pink scar.
So yeah, there we go. I opened an alpha pack, and if they would have scanned it, I would have just left it sealed forever. You see? Because I would have known it was dog shit. And I was like, okay, good enough. But yeah. But
you're keeping the
open your stuff.
Open your stuff.
That's right.
And play the game.
Except for the sealed cases I have up there. Those are still unimpeachable because they're sealed cases.
Yeah.
That's much more difficult to fuck with. Moving on. It's going to be a quick one tonight. So that's right.
We're already at 45 minutes in. I don't know how it's going to be.
We just have realm and listener questions.
Okay. So that will still get us to an hour.
An hour is short for us.
We have 4 listener questions and yeah. Okay, sure. Yeah, it'll be a short one. We're just actually on time for once.
Whatever. Next Realm Fest, August 31st, September 1st in Columbus. Saturday will be the Classic Constructed 5K Invitational Qualifier for the qualifying for the 50K at the end of the year. That's for top 8 with first place getting the VIP invite. And then on Sunday, you will have Lorcana Qualifier, Star Wars Unlimited Open, and an Alpha Clash Awakening. So whichever game you're into, there's something for you. Even if it's Flesh and Blood plus another thing, also into it for you. I have it on good authority. I'd say good-ish authority. As good authority as I probably can have it on. That there will be also Realm qualifiers running on Sunday as well. So if you really want to get that 50K invite, you will have opportunities to do so outside of the 5K on Saturday. So again, I say this every time, and I mean it every time. You should show up for these. It's well worth your time and effort and money to show up for these. Just gonna throw that out there.
Should I show up for these?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'll be there.
When I show up, should I open my packs and play the game?
You should open your packs and play the game.
Oh, okay.
I will be there. I will most likely be playing. Well, I don't know what I'll be doing yet, but I will be there.
Okay, that's fair.
And yeah, I really, I mean, if nothing else, if I'm just there playing, I'll play in the 5K, and then I'll probably play in the Star Wars Unlimited Open. Sure, sounds great. That's fine by me.
Yeah, that'll be a good time.
And if people want to play in the Alpha Clash events, I can bring you cards. I just traded some Alpha Clash this week for some FaP cards, just because I have a ton of Alpha Clash, and I could always use more Flesh and Blood. So I wound up with another tunic. What do I got here? I got a new my 4th or 5th tunic, 3 more Enlightened Strikes, so I have 12 now, I think. 3 more Warmongers, so I think I have 7. A couple of Art of Wars, a couple of Command and Conquers, some levels of Enlightenment, and then because I don't think you have one, I got you this thingy.
I don't. I have a regular. I
got you that. I got you that thingy because I love you.
All right.
I just bought another 100 episodes from this fucking idiot.
I love you too. I just like it when my assassin stuff is shiny and I play that in new. This is the extra EA cold foil traverse for me now, so I already had one. And I was like, saw it on the list of the things the guys were trading. I'm like, I'll take that too. That's fine. And I was like, I don't think Derek has one, so this will work. Yeah, that is one of the ones I am still chasing. I need to get off my butt and get myself an Arknight shard because those numbers are incredibly small, and I'm reminded of that every time we talk about print runs. So I try to
I think
have,
it's pretty cheap right now too.
I try to have one of each of the fables in case I, do want to play them or whatever. And the only 2 fables that I don't own right now, to have at least a playable copy, right? Because like, let's be honest, I can't afford the like OG cold foil fables. So all of my fables are in cold foil starting with Monarch. But before that, rainbows, with the exception of I don't own an Arknight shard, and then the Fable Command and Conquer I don't own one of, because back when they were like between $300 and $400, it was that weekend I was breaking down. I was like, all right, I'm finally gonna buy one, and I went to a booth, and Keith was like, yeah, if you're interested or whatever, they're like $800, and I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, they spiked in price. And so then I started going to every booth. I went to like Min-Max, I went to a bunch of the other ones, because this was I think it was a Pro Tour Baltimore when that happened.
Would have been Baltimore.
Yeah. And so like I started going booth to booth to see if I could still find one at the previous price, and everybody had already raised them. So I don't own, those are the only 2. I don't own an Arknight shard, and I don't own the Command and Conquer. But
this is the gentle reminder to people also that if you don't have a Heart of Fyendal, you should probably try to get a Heart of Fyendal. They are currently there is one as time of recording online for $357 and one for $389, and everything else is $400 or more. And the last solds are on an upward chart. There is no downward. There's no downward. It's all on the upward chart. So you had one that sold for $329 on 8.1. You had one that sold for $340 on 8.3. You had one that sold for $356 on 8.4. Okay. Verdance is going to want Heart of Fyendal. Do what you will with that. Yeah, I think that's all I got. Let's do listener questions. Sound like fun?
yes, let's do listener questions.
Okay, first one is from Farcist. I like Farcist. It's a great name. Is there one particular hero you are looking to play from the new set, La Rosetta, or an old hero who's looking more promising with the resurgence of new Runeblade and Wizards? I think if I'm being honest, the hero that looks like that I would want to play from the new set, and I think right now, if we're talking about Classic Constructed, I would be taking a hero from the new set. The one, oddly enough, that I think looks like the most fun to me right now is actually Florian, which is weird because Florian just looks like a Guardian. And usually I don't like playing Guardian, but there's something that speaks to me about all the weird shit that deck's going to do. And I like weird shit. I love Rune Chance. It makes a bunch of Rune Chance too.
Yeah, I could see that. Even before this weekend, I would have probably answered Aurora. I'm hard in on Assassin, but if I was going to play something from this class, and I still might dabble with Aurora because I didn't sell any of my Runeblade stuff. When I started the game, Guardian and Runeblade were the 2 that I played. And then when Runeblade kind of, I'll just say went in a downturn, if you will, I replaced that with Assassin, right? So still play Guardian when I want to be more reactive. If I want to be proactive, I play Assassin. But Aurora looked like a lot of fun. And then even just playing the First Strike deck, I was kind of reminded about like what I liked about Runeblade. And specifically what I liked is, one, you get to play a lot of cards. It always feels good. Even if your turn isn't super successful, when you do more things a turn, it's just like, my crow brain goes, ooh, I did the shiny thing. But also, I really enjoy specifically with Runeblades, the kind of puzzle making of sequencing, because with Ninja a lot of time now, Zen is I think a step in the right direction for Ninja design, but like with Ninja in the past, it was either you were playing like combo Katsu, well, not counting Ninja Turtle and blah blah blah, right? But you were playing like combo Katsu, in which case like the cards tell you the order to play them in, or you played like Fi and it was just count the number of cards you've played, do the thing. But when you play Runeblade, and so I used to like playing Chain, and then I liked a lot of Briar in the early days. You know, granted, like she was really strong, but it was what attracted me was the play style, the ordering of like which attack do I want to buff and in what order, and what is going to be the payoff for doing it a certain way was always interesting to me from a play point of view, because I feel like I get more decision making, right? I feel like I have more skill expression. And even with just the first strike deck where, you know, you've got the lightning flow cards and some stuff has go again and some doesn't, but also because you can with her hero ability make an embodiment of lightning so that you can give something go again. She felt like and again, very early, it's just the first strike deck, but she felt like a fair Chain, right? Because Chain's thing where you can use Soul Shackle to give something go again, that's kind of the way her hero power worked, but instead of it also making you have like a 10 card hand at some point, it felt a little more fair. But the fact also that you could you know, save your embodiments for later, and at least in the first strike deck, there's also some lightning instants that prevent damage you can play. So you could, like, when I was playing against Stark, you could play that and then make the embodiment of lightning on your opponent's turn to set you up for the follow-up. Even if you had like a low turn, if you had two things without go again, you could give yourself some room. Like, there was just a lot of the reminders of what I liked about that class. And so there is a chance that I play a bit of Aurora when this comes out. It felt fun, and I had kind of forgotten how much I missed Runeblade.
I have all these slabs, and I don't know what to do with them now. Because, like, I just have slabbed cards. Because I can't open these and play with them. Because they're in plastic.
Well, but it's a bunch of equipment and stuff, right?
Yeah, it's all a bunch of equipment. Yeah. It's not. So. It's like Kadachi's and yeah, it's all equipment. I just have a couple in here that are fun. And it's I was just like, hey, wait a second, I still have all these slabs. What the fuck? I can't open these. Charmer's gonna be mad at me. And then
open your stuff and play with it.
I remembered I can play with these still because
yeah. Open your stuff and play with it, Logan.
It's literally this is right. This is literally FaP away. This is literally a hero token that I have graded.
But it's
because it's one of it is. It's because it's one of the triple X ones that they use at the very first play events before, like, they as tokens for WTR. And so it's from a bit of history. It's a 2019 token.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't even know how many of these there are. Like, as far as, I'm going to go look because you can. I know, great radio, right? I'm just going to search in the registry here. Continue. Yada, yada, yada. Submit. I guess I got to do this. But yeah, it's a, so they have registries out there. So if anybody's really interested in this, promotional, submit. Okay. So, like, these registries are really kind of cool because it gives you the opportunity to just, like, look at what's out there and how many of things are out there. So, like, in this case, this is the only one that anybody's ever graded because apparently I'm an idiot. So, and are there any of these on eBay? Nope. So maybe I just have something super rare. Well, let's do that. I'll use that as a litmus test. But now I've got off track again. Fuck me. Next question is from El Dorte, who has invited us to Switzerland. Did you catch that?
I did. I just don't know how I'm going to get there.
Yeah, I know.
So,
that's kind of my thought.
If he could send a boat, that'd be great.
I'll take a boat. Just don't have Eric on it. He'll forget you're on it. If you could join a Team CC event, no hero duplicates, every non-legendary card can only be 3 times. So it's called, oh God, Unified. It's called Team Unified, which means that you can only have the limit of a card over the course of your entire team.
Yeah.
So this is Team Unified CC. Would you rather it be 3, 4, or 5 players, and what would your team lineup look like? So 3 players, because you don't want an even number, and 5's a lot to try to spread across. Now, you do have a lot of heroes that are pretty unique.
I was going to say, here's the thing. 5, I think, would be more fun because the puzzle of deck building gets stretched a bit more. But
Sure,
5
but
is
ever.
giving me anxiety for trying to put the team together. I don't know 5 responsible enough people that can get their schedules together at the same time, let alone enough teams to play an event.
That's actually true. That's fair. What would your team lineup look like? So let's start with you. What would you play? Like, what would you do?
Well, so are you talking like what class would I want to play, or what would I want in my team?
What are the 3 heroes you want in your team?
I want a Kano.
That's step 1. I think we both want a Kano.
We both want a Kano because it's not going to bleed into the card pool of others, and also you're more likely to get a favorable matchup because if you are limited on the amount of null rune that you can include in your team lineup, then Kano becomes a lot more effective. So I think you start with Kano. Every team starts with Kano. That's your wild card. And then from there, I think that it would make sense to have at least one other class or character that leans very heavily on their class cards. So it could be something like, no, assuming that we're including living legend stuff, like you could say like an Icelander, because you know, she's very heavy on ice stuff and whatever. But if you're not, and then you would still want to look at.
So it's CC. So living legend is you can only do CC heroes.
Okay, so in that case, the other example that I would lean toward would be somebody like an Azalea, where you're playing a lot of ranger cards.
Tunic and maybe like a Tunic is really the only card. Tunic and if you would in null rune potentially are about the only cards you're fighting over.
Yeah. And I think that you could give her the Tunic because then, at least right now, you could just play Zen
as
the other one. Or you could play like my version of New, where I'm still running Redback because I like the attack reaction and the extra block. But yeah, I think something like that makes the most sense. And that was part of the reason why I was starting my answer with like, technically, I think 5 would be more fun because then you actually do start to stretch the deck building puzzle a bit more. But in theory versus in practice is wildly different because getting 5 people together to register for an event,
right?
And then having enough said teams to do said event is a problem.
Yeah. And I mean, you could just, because like, I think that if I was going with 5, it would end up being Kano, Azalea, Kano, Azalea, Uzuri, Enigma, and Levia. But if it was 3s, it would be Kano, Zen, and Azalea would be probably my picks. You dodge all bleed over, all of it. Totally fine. But yeah, I love team events. I just wish there were more of them, like truth be told. Next one is from Sergeant Snipes. 4 Charmer. Logan reading 2 Charmer. Why is Iowa State going to get their asses beat by West Virginia? And why aren't you going to watch and celebrate with pepperoni rolls, beer, and singing country roads?
Well, it's because I don't know the words to country roads. I literally only know country roads take me home.
That's the song.
No, there's more to it because my son, like there's some, you know, younger generations can like sing the entire thing now. And I get it. Like John Denver is somewhat timeless and blah, blah, blah. But it's not within my skill set. And so I think that is the biggest problem.
Okay. Well, fair enough.
Now for also talking about like why West Virginia is going to be Iowa. Well,
Iowa State,
the entire state of Iowa, whatever they're going to beat Iowa. They're going to beat Iowa State. They're going to be whatever. The point here is that the West Virginians they're hungry. They're tenacious.
They also can't breathe because they have black lung.
No, that means that they have a very strong very hardy set of lungs, and once they're exposed to real air, they're going to be like Superman coming from Krypton to our Earth, and they're going to dominate those corn lovers.
No. Jacked up, juiced out farmer boys, or, you know, farmers are going to just... Farm kids are invincible. It's dumb. Because they like grew up fighting on stacking hay bales 9 feet tall, and then you get up on the hay bales and you put them next to each other and you fight and you see who can throw the other one off the hay bale first.
Yeah.
And that's just things we do for fun. That's not even work. That's just after work. So yeah, farm kids are fucking rough. But this is all spurred because Iowa State is playing West Virginia in West Virginia in October, and I plan on being there to celebrate an Iowa State victory and also celebrate Anna's 30th birthday. So that's where this is coming from.
I mean, that sounds fun.
It'll be a blast. I'll enjoy the shit out of it.
She's really
last
30?
question.
There's no way she's that old.
Right? That's what I thought. Last question is from Blaze Storm, valued member of the Patreon, but not necessarily valued in this case. Can you resolve Vasilio's ability without discarding an instant? My brain says yes, where it doesn't have if you do draw a card. No, because discarding an instant has a colon behind it, which means it's a cost. So you don't get to do the thing unless you pay the cost. Sorry. See, that was easy.
Yeah, that was easy.
That one I knew.
You got to do the thing. If you want the thing, you got to do the thing.
Yeah, I didn't have to ask Josh. That one I could read. Watch me be wrong. That'd be fucking hilarious.
That actually would be really funny. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, I gotta check. I gotta check to see if Nick Castellanos has hit a home run today yet. Because it is a. There were monumental things that happened in the world today, and usually that means Castellanos is going to hit a homer. Damn it, he does have a hit. No dinger yet, though. Come on, man. Gonna need to get... Oh, it was a triple, too. It was so close. Okay. He needs to get one. I got him at 6-1. Any rate, let's thank some patrons. What do you think?
Yeah, we should do that.
All right, let's go. First, we have our associate producers, Andy, Sindra, Jacob, Kenny, Larry, and the Salty Sea Cat. Then our executive producers on up, we have Alex, Blaze Storm, valued member of the Patreon, Dom, Lance Good Thrust, Matt Two Tokes. I'm going to move Matt up to valued member of the Patreon. He got hung out with me during the Blaze event in Gen Con. And yeah, just a reminder, he's an all-around good dude. And he is moving up to valued member of the Patreon, Matt Two Tokes. Pox on us, Trevor, not very valued member of the Patreon. Papa Mike, Philip, Rich, and Sunny. If you're interested in becoming a member of our Patreon, go to fleshandpod.com or fuck me, patreon.com/fleshandpod. The link is in the show notes. There are 6 tiers. Pick one, whatever. We're going to try to get to FaP After Dark. My guess is next week. But we're still trying to work around people's schedules. It turns out Brenda's touring a bunch and Greg has children and Derek and I don't know where the fuck we are. So,
I mean, I have children too.
Yeah, but
do you not have fleshandpod.com?
No,
man. Like, because if you had that, there's this other podcast I saw. They have like merch shirts with QR codes on them, and then like if you scan the QR code, it goes to their website.
That's Alpha
so Clash. Like yeah. when you wear like a shirt. And then you go to there, they could like follow our podcast, buy our merch. Did you just say that's Alpha Clash, you asshole? I was talking about Ice Cave Radio.
I know.
You absolute.
Tell you what, why don't you go get Flesh and Pod? Why don't you go get fleshandpod.com right now?
Here's what I'm gonna do. Here is what I am gonna do. I am just gonna start complimenting you every time I'm angry at you. This is going to be my weird long con of Pavlovian, so that you're going to hear me do it when you know you've done something wrong. And then every time someone else compliments you, you're going to feel awful inside.
So buying domains. Okay.
It's got to be $15.
Who
I don't
should I
know.
purchase
That's
this
it.
through?
I used to do it through Google forever, but they just they stopped doing it and they sold all of their domains to Squarespace. Yeah. So
I'll just go to Squarespace.
I mean, you can, like, their interface is nice, but they're overpriced as far as like industry standards. I don't remember if like Namecheap still does it or not. I'd have to look, but my stuff is all currently on Squarespace because I was on Google before.
Fleshandpod.com is $14.
Yep, that's about what I would have guessed.
Okay, so $14 a year. I can add .net and .org to that if I want to protect my brand.
Yeah, I don't protect my brand. I just have charmer.com, but I also have it because then I have my emails for that separated from my other emails.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. But let me see if anybody else is cheaper than that. Let's look here. There's GoDaddy.
Oh yeah, there's still a thing.
Yeah. There's just domain.com. Bluehost.
Do you remember how bad their advertising was for so long?
But GoDaddy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like an entire generation that's not going to understand like how commercials worked, let alone how influential they were at times and how crazy they were.
Hold on.
I'm holding.
It says it's a penny. For the first year, it's a penny. And then every year after that, it's like $23 or $25. So
yeah,
or $22. So it's cheaper.
They're trying to get you to set it and forget it.
Yeah. We're not doing that. Then there's Namecheap.
Yeah, Namecheap was the one that I was thinking of. I know I've used them in the past, but it's been many years.
All right, search fleshandpod.com. What is on here? Oh, there we go. $10.28 a year. And with this promo code, it's cheaper. All right, let's do this. I don't want the web hosting. Do I want anything else on here?
I don't know. It depends on whether you wanted to put a website up.
You're the expert, Derek. Like,
no, I'm not. Please don't do this to me.
I'm going to put the web hosting on there.
Listen, I was trying to hashtag free ad myself. I didn't know you were going to make us do this work while we were recording.
I'm going to make you do it. I'm going to make you do it. I'm going to make you do it live. Fuck off.
No, I would imagine you probably don't want hosting through them, but that depends on how much time and effort you want to put into your website building and design, because if you are like me and you're lazy, you probably want to go with somebody who has a very easy WYSIWYG. So
that'd be like Wix or something.
I was going to say, even though they're bastards, Wix and Squarespace do have the two best like WYSIWYG.
All right, we'll go to Squarespace. Fine. I know that they'll make you happy, and that's all I'm here to do is make you happy. So I will get a Squarespace account. I will use their code and take 20% off, and then we're going to have our website. God damn it. And this is all Charmer's fault.
I was just trying to hashtag free ad.
Yep. Well, too late.
Too late.
All right. Well, that's our show for this week.
Let me say in advance, I'm sorry, Jeff. Because now he's going to have to make QR codes for other shirts.
Yeah. What is this under? What would you call this? I'm going to call it... I'm just browsing. There we go. Product. I know I don't want any of that. I just want my website. Like, stop this. Products. What is this? Find a domain. There we go. All right.
What is this? I don't understand.
You know what? I'm going to get out of here. I'm just going to say that's our show for this week. Thank you everybody for listening and watching, and please like and subscribe. And I will update you with our web shenanigans at a later date. So, bye.